The Open Door Baptist podcast features the insightful preaching and teaching of our senior pastor, Jason Murphy. It also comprises of special messages from a number of guest speakers throughout the year. The purpose of this podcast is to be a witness in our community, to encourage others to grow in their relationship with God through the preaching and teaching of His Word, and to serve others in the name of Jesus Christ.
Christ the Savior came from heaven's glory to redeem the lost from sin and shame. On His brow He wore the thorn crown glory, and upon Calvary He took my blame. He lives on high, He lives on high, triumphant over sin.
So we didn't sing in Hawaiian for you, but that was actually, you guys have soul stirring songs and hymns, correct? Is that your hymn book? Okay, that is in your hymn book. I don't know if you ever sung it here, but it is set to a Hawaiian tune called Aloha Oi, and it was written by Queen Liliuokalani, the last queen of Hawaii, and anyway, we decided to do that because that was we had a hard time finding something in the Hawaiian language that was just a little bit more appropriate. But so anyway, thank you so much for having us. You guys have been just a huge blessing to us, and we're so excited to be here because we have not been off island for a year and a half, and my kids are just, my girls started packing a week before we came. They were so excited to see friends, and next week we get to see family. And I just want to open up with this verse, Psalm 40, verse 1. Many, O Lord my God, are thy wonderful works which thou hast done, and thy thoughts which are to usward. They cannot be reckoned up in order unto thee. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. And this is how I feel about my life. I am so blessed. You can't even imagine how blessed I am. This is the first church I came to before I was a week old. My girls asked if I was going to cry, and I said, no, there's nothing to cry about, but I get nervous. So my parents, right after they got married, they were traveling up to Canada, came back down here visiting family. They lived out of a Chevy van. They were hippies. My dad was newly saved. They were in their late 20s and early 30s. My mom had gotten saved when she was just a young girl, Lutheran, but had never had anyone disciple her. So she had just rededicated her life to the Lord. They walked into these doors, and my dad had overalls on and necklace, long hair, and he heard Pastor Blue speak, and he knew this was the place he was going to be. He knew the truth was being spoken here. And this is where my dad got trained for the ministry. And so about 5.5 years after my dad got saved, we moved to North Dakota, and he started a church. That was his home state. He went back to his home state. And so I was raised as a pastor's daughter pretty much my whole life. And it's a blessing to me that my parents were first-generation Christians, and how different my life would be if they hadn't gotten saved. And just what's transpired in our family because my dad got saved and my mom got saved. And so I just want to thank God for being so good to me. I want to thank him for the influence of this church. I remember I learned how to tie my shoes downstairs in that basement. And I mean, really, seriously, some of my earliest memories are from this church. And so it's really, really cool to be here. And I'm just so thankful that Pastor Murphy was so gracious to fly our entire family out here. I mean, I have 5 kids, just like Mrs. Gonderman. And I've heard that you have to have, in order to be a missionary, you have to have at least 5 kids. So some of you missionary wives, you don't have 5 kids? What's wrong with you? I'm just kidding. But really, so it's been awesome to be here, and he's been so generous to us and very, very good to our family, and I'm thankful. So I met my husband. I'm just going to kind of give you just a quick little brief story about how we got to Hawaii and just kind of what's going on there. Mary asked me to do kind of a testimony of what's going on in Hawaii. So I met my husband when I was 19, and we got married. I was almost 21, and for the first 3 years, we lived in his home state of Idaho and attended Treasure Valley Baptist Church. And my husband had gone to the Bible Institute. He had a great desire to be a pastor and a missionary, but he was in charge of the bus ministry. And basically, that's pretty much what he had done. He had no pastoral experience. He really had not been trained to be a pastor. And 3 years into our marriage, his pastor took him aside and asked him if he was interested in candidating for a church. And guess where it was? It was Bismarck, North Dakota. And it happened to be the church that my dad had planted when I was 4. And they had gone through about 5 pastors. My dad had resigned when I was about 9 and gone on to plant a church in Missoula, and he's still there. And their pastor's wife had died in a car crash, and he was severely depressed. The church was severely depressed, and it was just time for him to move on. And so we moved there, took that church. I was 24 and he was 28. And, you know, I thought we probably should run the church how, you know, my dad had run the church, and he thought we should run the church like, you know, how Pastor DeMichael ran the church. And I would say we didn't probably go into that church thinking, let's just start really slow, let's learn the culture, let's see what these people are all about. You know, we kind of had these preconceived ideas. We were young. And so I am super thankful for that experience. We were there for 12 years, and we learned a lot. Those poor people. We grew. They tolerated us. No, it actually became a really good experience. We still stay in contact. We have. It was a lovely place to have my kids and raise them, and everything turned out just fine, and it was a blessing. But 4 years before my husband resigned, we had a missions conference. And like I said, he had always wanted to be a missionary. And we had big missions conferences, and he would have like 4 or 5 missionaries, and they'd all have dinner at our house. And it was just our highlight of the year. And he just felt like God was telling him at that missions conference, it's time to move on. You're not going to be here for forever. So for about 4 years, my husband was researching countries on the internet, and he really wanted to go somewhere where no one has been. He was looking at Bhutan and Indonesia, all these places that are hard to get into. And I'm just sitting, okay, Lord, okay, I can do this. In fact, even Brother Roberts, we were praying about helping him at one point in Vietnam. And a pastor's friend of him, and I hope my husband has not said all this because I wasn't able to be here last night. My baby's sick, so I'm sorry if you're getting this the second time. But a pastor friend of his asked him if he'd ever thought of the Big Island, that there was an opening on the Big Island of Hawaii. And we didn't know what to think. I think we thought, what are people going to think of us? What's interesting? We went to Kauai for our honeymoon, and we visited a church twice, and we drove all around that island. And Hawaii was not what we thought it was. We had up here. Who has been to Hawaii? Can you raise your hand? Has anybody been to the Big Island? Okay. So some of you have seen it, but if you only stay in the resort areas, in the coast, you just think it's paradise and it's perfect. But if you drive around, you see that there's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of subcultures, people that have come over from the Marshall Islands, Micronesians. These people live in shacks without electricity or running water. Sometimes it's just really overwhelming to know who should we be reaching, and how can we reach all the different groups? That's definitely a challenge. But we came home and back to Idaho, and he was saying, man, Hawaii needs churches. And you know what? Every person he told that to laughed at him. Like, oh yeah, you're going to be a missionary to Hawaii. So little did we know, years later, he had to go on deputation and say he was going to Hawaii. And that was definitely a challenge because people just, laughed and just cracked jokes the entire time. Now, he'd go on the West Coast and visit the West Coast, and people would know more about Hawaii and could empathize. And I think maybe, some of you that have gone, you can see Hawaii had, the first missionaries came over in the 1820s. And they were Congregationalists, and they brought Christianity to the islands. But in the last 50 years or so, really, it's gone from a Christian nation to just anti. Nobody goes to church. It's really all about recreation. It's very new agey, and people don't always think of the missionaries in a good light. And so, anyway, my husband went on deputation, and for about 1.5 years, and we got there. We moved there in January of 2015, and the Lord just worked out a place for us to live. Now we realize how hard it is to get a place to rent with 5 kids. Now we know that. But when we were looking, my husband found the place. It was the upper level of a house in a Nazarene church kind of compound. There was the church, there was the parsonage, with offices below and another studio apartment. And then a big part of the church was used as a daycare and a big parking lot in between. And so he kind of looked at that first. He'd found it on Craigslist, and there were like 30 applicants. And the man who was taking the application said, my husband sent an email telling him what we were coming to do. He has 5 great kids. We'll try not to trash your house. And they picked us out of everybody. They just felt led of the Lord. And so he had come a week to find a place, and that was the only thing he could find, and seeing really how bad it was. And housing is just in high demand, and it's just very expensive. And so we did get that place, and it turned out to be a huge blessing. Yes, it was noisy with all the children across the street. No, we really didn't have a yard. We were on a super busy street. There were 4 major car crashes in the year that we lived there, where they would, hit up against a lava rock wall, and we would all jump up and run outside to see, what carnage had taken place. But the living room was enormous. I don't even know the size of it, but we held our Friday night Bible studies there. We started that instead of a Wednesday night. And it was perfect for our needs. We could set up all our chairs, and it was just a huge blessing. It was close to town. People didn't have to travel a ways to get there. So God really worked there. And recently, the Lord allowed us to buy a house, which is another miracle, because they're just really hard to come by in our price range. And so now we're just starting to feel more settled. And I've heard it's a big thing when you buy a house, because it shows people that you're wanting to stay. And so I mean that's just been great. Now, when we first got there, there was a group of people waiting for us, about 3 families waiting for a pastor. The church that my husband had originally heard of from his pastor friend, it had gotten filled. The position had been filled. And so he started looking at Kona, the west coast, the dry side, the sunny side, okay? And found out that there was a man holding church service. He already had a church down south in Naalehu, and he was coming up twice a week to hold services in Kona, because there was a little small group that needed a pastor. And so we heard about them, and we decided to make a trip to go visit. And at the same time, some people that we knew from my husband's former church got a hold of us and said, we have been praying about going to the Big Island for 18 years. And we'd like to be there at the same time as you. So they traveled, they were there for our survey trip. And when we got there and we came to the place where they met at a detail shop, a car detail shop. And it was not anything you'd want to invite somebody to. They would meet outside under a canopy, and you were sitting where they washed out all the cars. So you didn't even want to put your purse down. You didn't want your kids, bending down and picking stuff up. It was so greasy and dirty. But that was just all they had at the time. And we walked into the lobby, and a Filipino lady came up to my husband and said, "Are you our new pastor?" And he was just taken aback, because here we are. We were just on a survey trip. Another lady walked up to me and she said, I'm from Nampa, Idaho. I went to your church, and my husband, he's Filipino, he got saved in your church. And she knew my second cousin, who I don't even know, who looks like me, I guess. And, it was just kind of these incidences, one thing after the other, and God just really confirmed it to us while we were there. The Lord gave me a verse, and it was just kind of scary, but exciting at the same time. And so when we got there and we were meeting in our detail shop, we just didn't feel the liberty to invite people to come. We we had a dumpster, in the parking lot, and people would come by and dump their trash while my husband was preaching, and it was just a little crazy. And so the Lord has provided a place for us to meet in a shopping center. It's on the second floor, and the first thing I saw when we walked into these rooms was royal blue carpet, and I thought, how can I decorate with this? But really, it's in good shape, and we've neutralized. We still have the carpet, but actually everything else was in great shape. We had some pretty creamy walls and some pretty wood doors and door frames, and the guys got right to work and knocked down some walls, and we got some chairs from Costco, and we set up an area for all our music and the podium, and we just really, we're trying to, I guess our biggest desire is we want to fit in. We don't want to come in and be like, we're doing it our way. We just want to come in softly and come in slowly, and we've just taken our time. I do the music at the church, and we incorporate the guitar and the ukulele. My son Gideon plays ukulele during the song service, and I'm so thankful that we had that other church, because our mindset now is so different, and we want to learn the culture. We don't want to, be offensive. We just want to be very careful about every decision we make, and super prayerful. And so one of the things is, so we've got this area, and we've got it at an awesome, amazing price. And we have a place for a Sunday school room and a nursery, and it's really loud. We're really close together, but it's okay. I mean, we at least have a clean place for the kids to be. And every time people come through the doors, I'm looking for brown people. We just so want to reach the locals, and we just need that wisdom to know how to do that. I know they're slow to accept us, and we just want to win those people to the Lord, because we know that they will be able to reach those people groups. And we do have a couple of mixed families, Filipino and Haole. Haole is if you're white. And we've got some native locals. There's really not much pure Hawaiian left, but he's got a little bit of Hawaiian, Puerto Rican, German, whatever. But he's brown, so that's good. And so I honestly, I seriously, I don't want us to all be Howleys. This is so cool. I love your area too. See, I lived in North Dakota for 12 years, and then before that, I lived in Idaho and Montana, and yes, it's all Howleys. So, for me, it's cold.
The brown people can't take the cold.
Right, and I don't mind the cold. The heat has been something for me to get used to. But anyway, a challenge that we have is we have tons of tourists that come in every Sunday, and we kind of didn't know how to deal with them at first. Like, do you just kind of say hi, shake their hand, and then go talk to the local people? That's kind of what my husband was thinking, like, we've got to reach the locals. And we had a visiting pastor, and they just gave us some very good advice. They said, anybody who walks through your door, those doors are your responsibility. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. We've had an older gentleman come in, and he sat down, and we had a missionary speaking, and halfway through he raised his hand and asked the guy when he was going to be done. And it just killed the spirit. And then afterwards, he takes my husband's hand to shake it, and my husband goes to draw it away, and he won't let go. And he said right in front of the missionary, that man could have said what he could have said what he said in 20 minutes and sat down. And you think, why? Why do you come? Why are you coming? are you coming to hear the word of God? Or are you just feeling an obligation? I mean, you are on vacation. No one would know if you didn't come to church. But honestly, a lot of people come. We've got lots of signs out, and people will come to that shopping center and they'll see it on Saturday, and then they'll come on Sunday. But you know what? We have had people come who have taken us on for support. They have been so encouraged to see that we're there, and my husband's preaching from the Bible, and he's preaching the truth, and we're not, we're not charismatic, because really that is the majority. It's Assemblies of God, and everything is signs and wonders. I mean, that's everything. It's not the Bible. The people there, the Christians there, they do not know their Bible. It's all experience. And so that's really what people think of when they think of Christians there, because they're kind of all connected. They kind of all know each other. They're kind of connected to YWAM, the big university. It's kind of like a Christian university that trains people to be missionaries, but it's very, very Assemblies. And so, we've just had some really good experiences too. The last 2 weeks, my husband, he always has people give testimonies before he preaches, and we've just had some sweet couples. They're just crying, giving, just so thankful to be there, and thanking the Lord what He's done for them, and they just add to that spirit in our church. They help with the singing and. So it's just unique. Our church services, you just never know what to expect. You've just got all kinds of people coming in, and so that's kind of what's going on with the church. I think really now what we're working on is we really want to reach out into the community and find the best way to do that, because we're finding that we need to be out there to rub shoulders with people. And my husband tries. He's like the most friendly person in the world, and he can talk to anybody. And anywhere we go, we're supposed to be on a date night, but he's talking to 5 different people, and that he wants to get to know people so well. So he's thought about getting like a part-time job to just get out there and get to know people that way. The Lord has not given him the green light on that, because he just feels like his time would be taken away, where he can just take guys out to lunch and sit on the phone with them for an hour and a half, which happens a lot. And so what our plan is to start an Awanas program, because we really want to reach the many children in the community. Also, I've been thinking that I probably should get my kids involved in maybe some sports where I can get to know the moms, and maybe my husband could help coach or something like that. So that's just, it's just hard, because I want it to be a good experience. I don't want them to be the outsiders, and we just have to kind of trust God to lead us in the right sports and the right groups. And I'm just going to close with I'm going to just tell you a little bit about a couple of girls that I was able to disciple, and their names were Jen and Nicole, and one was 23 and one was 27. And they were friends of the family that had the detail shop, okay? And they got to know our friend who moved there to help us. He moved there before us. And they couldn't come to church on Sundays because they worked. And so he decided he'd start a Bible study on Friday nights for them, and they would come to learn the Bible. And so when we got there, we continued that Friday night Bible study in our home. And they came faithfully. And so about a couple months in, I asked them if they'd like to start a discipleship course. And they faithfully came. Every week we'd meet at a coffee shop. And for 6 months we did this. And it was so encouraging. There were local girls. One was half Filipino, half Swiss. One was Mexican and Haole. And especially the younger one, the Filipino girl, she answered questions so thoughtfully. You knew she was just really putting a lot of effort into it. She was witnessing to her family, trying to get them to come to church. And as we drew near to the end of the course, I noticed that she was getting a little bit distant. And I thought, did I say something wrong? Or, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. And she just kind of continued to be that way. And one day we were at a birthday party, and my husband had to move her car for her out of the driveway. And he saw something and didn't say anything to me about it. But when we took these girls out to kind of celebrate being done with the discipleship course, he asked her about the picture that he saw in her car, and it was the picture of her boyfriend. And what had happened is both of these girls had left their boyfriends. I had not said anything. They had just done it of their own accord. And they told us because they're not saved, they're not going the same direction as us. And, unbeknownst to us, she had gotten back together with him, and she just obviously just felt guilty and, didn't share that at all. And the other girl was saying, I know, I was telling her she needed to tell you. And so my husband just, kindly, but truthfully just told her, you need to be with someone who's going in the same direction for you. God He has somebody for you if we just wait. And so we had our goodbyes, and one of the girls, the older girl, she had was pregnant and about ready to have a baby. She's not married, but she was. It wasn't with a man she wanted to be with, and she wasn't with him. So she ended up having the baby. So she was kind of out of church for a while. And then the younger one, she just kind of slowly kind of drifted. And I just would text them every week and say, how are you doing? And if I tried to call, it was always a text back, never call me back. And this girl, then we found out that she was pregnant, and now, and I told her, we're disappointed, but we want to have a relationship with you. We hope you would still come to church, and we love you, please come. And she just hasn't been back. I think she, again, is ashamed, and she's showing now, she's 7 months. The other girl has finally started to come back, but I feel like this is maybe one of the biggest obstacles for us. I just feel like people don't open up and they don't share. I mean, she didn't, want to say anything about her boyfriend. She didn't want to say anything about being pregnant. It's always very surface. And if you would just pray that we have wisdom to know how to be their friend, and show them that we love them, and that they would open up to us and they'd trust us and know that we're going to stay. And that is, I have hope that she'll come back maybe after she has her baby, but this is just kind of what we've run into. It's just, there's a little bit of a barrier there, and there's a wall. And if any of you, I just opened this up, if any of you have experience with those cultures, we have Japanese, Chinese, we have Filipino, very much like here. We have Mexicans and South Americans and Portuguese. And if you have ideas for me about those cultures, ways that I can approach and be my, just be my best with them, what's the best way to get in with them, I welcome those suggestions. But I thank you guys for having us. We're so excited to be here to hear preaching. I haven't heard preaching regularly for, about a year. I'm always in Sunday school, so I'm just really blessed to be here, and thank you so much for your support and your prayers. Thank you.